Good afternoon. Welcome to another Goalline webinar. As usual, we'll give a moment or so for some folks to get themselves connected. I imagine a lot of folks are waiting to watch the recording when we're done here. Quick little housekeeping as we wait there. You'll notice you don't have any audio options throughout the webinar, but there is a chat module. So if you do have questions, go ahead and throw those questions into the chat. We'll also make sure to touch on lots of different ways that you can contact the support team if you do have any kind of questions about your day-to-day stuff here. So throw your questions in there, and then as I see those, if I know it'll come up later, we'll come across it. Otherwise, we'll stop and address some questions. And then if time allows at the end, we'll stick around for some extra questions as well. Today's webinar, our topic is website and communication. So Goalline is a platform that provides you with a website along with all of the other tools you need to manage your sport organization. Some organizations only take advantage of things like registration, in which case we have some website layout options that are specific and only for the use of registration tools. And so they wouldn't be used for things like web pages or scheduling and things like that. Very useful websites to have. So Goalline does come with a website, but that website may have a layout that doesn't necessarily make it a content website for you as an organization. The example you see on your screen right here is what we call our registration only format. So what this does is it's a templated format with a background image and a banner image that would represent your organization. And anytime you have registration forms that are published and current and available for folks to register for, they're going to see those forms listed here. So they would just be links listed so that you can click on whatever form it is you want to register on, and then you would have your registration account sign in button up here, and then as usual, admin login button is going to be up here. And this is typically the only content you're going to see on what we call a registration only website with Goalline. There's another registration only style. This one has a little bit of extra bells and whistles involved, and this allows you to create some categories and have some featured events that show up directly before people have to search or look through anywhere. If you're part of a network in Goalline, that network can be listed here so that folks could hop between the different levels and organizations within your network. So a national governing body with each of its provinces listed, or a province with each of its districts or regions listed, and things like that may be how that gets structured. With the event style, the categories that are here are customizable, so you can use whatever makes sense to you. And these are really great options for organizations that run a lot of events and have a lot of different things that folks need to register for. Because it does allow you to categorize, and as you know, with Goalline, you could have unlimited registration forms. So you may have some for summer camps and some for boys hockey programs and girls soccer programs and whatever it is that you have. So this could be, there might be 10 forms in the player form category. When I select that, it's going to show me the available form. When I click on the form, it's going to take me to that form and allow me to register. So those are the two registration only style sites. Registration only style sites don't allow you to have a menu or any kind of configured content, with the exception of the event search layout. You are able to create a single a web page and have that web page be placed above this bar. And I'll just show you a current example of where we see that here. So we see the event search style layout here. And then we have this link here, which is linking back to their other website. If you are using Goalline just for the purpose of registration, it's likely that you have a website elsewhere. If you have a website elsewhere, this allows you to create that link back to your other website so that folks can come here to register and then go back to your third-party website. If you do want to have that kind of relationship with a registration-only site, you do need to have the event search style as part of the design of that site, but the functionality that you get is going to be exactly the same. So those are our registration-only sites. I wanted to point those out as options for those who maybe don't have a use for Goalline for their full website functionality. The other styles of websites that we have are our gold and silver layouts. So we'll start with looking at the gold layout here. The gold layout is a templated layout that's going to have a custom designed background image and a custom designed banner image shown here. And when I say it's templated, it generally means that the shape of the site is going to look like this, but your color scheme and your design and your images will all be custom. And there's lots of choices when it comes to how you choose to display things and maybe what you choose to display. So as I look through a gold level site, we can see here is our menu, and there are 2 rows of menu. So we have our top menu first row, and then we have our top menu second row. Below that, my site here is showing what we call the scrolling game center. This is an optional feature that can be turned on or off for any gold or silver layout website. For a gold level website, to turn it on or off, you'll contact the support team. You can do that easily by sending a quick email to goallinesupport@stacksports.com. Let them know that you'd like to turn on or off the scrolling game center for your site, and it will be turned on or off accordingly. The scrolling game center will show the last 10 and the upcoming 10 games that are scheduled across any of the teams or leagues that you have within your site. So if this isn't enabled, it's just going to skip right down to the next item, which would be, again, if you have one published, your ticker announcement. So I have a ticker announcement scrolling across. Ticker announcements are available on the gold and silver layout style sites. And then below that, we see what we call our front page news slider. We're going to look at how we add news and how we add a lot of this other content. The news slider is here, and then we have 3 callout boxes, and these callout boxes have configurable options where you can choose to place various items. So it could be a news article, could be an image that just links to something else. In this case here, I've got my referee login. It could be things like upcoming games, recently reported games, or even an RSS feed from maybe your governing body or a separate website that you want to have an RSS feed to. Below that, we're going to see recent headlines, which is just going to be an accumulation of news articles that have been published. And then over on the other side here, we have some other options available. So this space here is ad space. You can create the ads yourself and post them to your website. If you're in the Goalline National Ad Program, there's already going to be an ad placed here, but you can place your own as well, in addition to the Goalline ad program that might show up there. If you do have the ad program showing on your site and you're curious about what it means to get rid of that, there are some fees involved in removing the ad program if you're currently seeing it on your site, but definitely reach out to us and learn about what's involved in removing the ad program so that only your ads are going to be displayed on the site, no competing sponsors and things like that. As we scroll down, we can see here I have enabled on this one latest scores. So this is just going to show a bunch of games that have been previously reported recently. Upcoming games is going to show games that are in the future. Upcoming practices is practices that are in the future. And these typically are going to hold about 10 of each of these items. You have options to turn these on or off. How you turn them on or off is going to be a little different on gold versus silver. But with gold, you have a site configuration tool that allows you to say, yes, I want this to show, or no, I don't. With the silver layout, we'll take a quick look at how you update the things that go into your modules there. But that is the general layout of our gold level sites. As you scroll down or navigate down into things like team and league menus, you're going to see all kinds of various things. So team menus will automatically build themselves. League menus and things will also do that. So as you click around, in my soccer grouping, here's what I have for divisions. When I click on one of those divisions, it's going to take me where I want it to go and see my standings and that type of thing. So lots of ways for us to configure this. And we're going to look at some of the settings that really affect how your menu behaves when we dive into to managing your menu after we look at our layouts here. The other layout we have, as I mentioned, is silver. So the silver layout is our layout. It is a templated design, but it's a little flexible as far as how the information gets laid out. There is no custom designed graphics that go into a silver layout. What we do is collect your logo from you, and that informs us about things like your color schemes that would be used throughout the site. Things like what color is the text, what color is it when I hover, and all that kind of thing. And then the background image that we see here, or the main image, this is your image that you can add and swap out as frequently as you'd like. A lot of organizations do tend to keep this image the same for maybe every season, but it's fun to change that out often as well. A great way that I see a lot of folks updating this main image is at the end of a season when you've got some winning teams who've provided those team photos with their trophies and banners, having a nice collage of those photos integrated as your main image here is another great way to kind of showcase what's going on within your organization. So this main image here is what we'll see on a silver site, and then we're going to see news scrolling through here. News that scrolls through here just scrolls through with the title and the summary, and then I would click to read more, but news can be placed in some other areas on this layout. For example, as we scroll down below, this is a news article here. We can include images as those are displayed in some of the other modules. There's ad space available to you here as well. And again, if you're part of the national ad program, you'll see an ad placed here, but you can share an additional ad on that same location if you create one and decide to place it on that homepage location. So keep that in mind, that there's lots of places for you to place ads throughout. As you can see here, we've got our scrolling game center again. Your site configuration tool is going to allow you to turn this on or off at your leisure. And then we have some of the other options. So here we have our layer of callout boxes. You have configuration options to change this from 4 to 3 or even just 2 of these modules. They take up the same amount of space, so they still exist within the same frame of a site with the template. However, the boxes would just be bigger or smaller based on how many you've chosen to display. So here we have 4 of them, and they're all using what we call our image and text option. So our image uploaded with text. So you choose an image, and then you decide what you want the title of that to be, and then you decide what the link is when I click on that link. So here it's going to take me to the halifaxmooseheads.ca website. If I click on this one, because that's the URL configured with this image, if I look at this one, it's going to take me to the Discover Halifax website, and so on. These can be links within your own site or any other URL that you choose. Below here, we have 4 modules that scroll down here. You have choices to turn this, instead of being 4, this could be 8 smaller modules as well. So depending on the amount of content you have as an organization to really showcase, you may want the 4 rows, or you may want the 2x4 grid to show up there. And again, we'll take a quick look at that in the back end here as we look there. And then we also got some options on the side here with 3 additional modules, and these can all use the same thing. So they could be Goalline standard items, or they could be image uploaded with text. Things like upcoming games is pretty popular to show down here. Recent results. We do allow, I think we just need to update our username here, but we do allow the embedding of a Twitter feed on gold and silver sites. On the silver layout site, we also have the ability to embed a Facebook feed. So if you have a lot of social media activity on Twitter and Facebook, you can have those feeds in some of your modules here as well. And they can be placed anywhere. It happens to be in that module on this particular site. The same way as we see the top menu first row and second row on our gold sites, we see that here on our silver sites. The one difference in the behavior of our menus is that on gold and silver, or sorry, on the silver site, we have our main item, and then we can also have the secondary menu item that pops out. Whereas on the gold site, we don't get that secondary item. When we land on competitive, we then see our listing of, Halifax boys, Halifax girls, and so on. So we still have the same navigation abilities. It's just not displayed the same when it comes to the menu. The other main thing to note about the silver layout is going to be its responsiveness to being viewed on a mobile device. So whether it's being viewed on a tablet or a cell phone, the responsive design of the silver layout does show on mobile devices in a really user-friendly way. All of these modules, because they are individual modules, will stack on top of each other, which allows people to just scroll through your content and navigate a little better. It also updates your menus to be that hamburger style menu, as opposed to having to display the full menu outright like this, because of course on mobile devices that takes quite a bit of space. Your gold level site will also be mobile responsive. Your mobile device will recognize that it should be showing the menu to you differently, but it just shows it to you in a slightly different way. And so when you're looking at a gold site on a mobile device, you could ask for the desktop version and it would show it to you just like we see here. That's what I tend to do a lot because I have a pretty large phone. But if you have a normal sized device, you may want to keep it in the mobile responsive. So it's going to recognize where you are, whether you're on a mobile device or a desktop, regardless of the style of layout. It's just to note that the silver layout is the most mobily responsive as far as showing that menu in a really nice user-friendly kind of way. So those are the layout options that are available to you. And again, depending on how you need to use Goalline, you may find that registration only is the perfect fit for you, but you may also want to have the whole shebang here and have all of the different options available. If you are using schedule tools, you will need a site that provides the ability to display those schedule tools. Otherwise, folks will not be able to access your schedules, your menus, your game results, and calendar subscriptions and things like that. So that is our overview of our layout options. So now we'll talk about how do we manage the menu over here. So how do we manage the menu that's listed here? And before I hop to the back end, I'm going to point out that a few of these items that we see are what we call Goalline standard items. As you know, we are a sports management company, and so we recognize that showing your leagues and teams and master schedules and venue listings, a lot of the things that you need to display in your menu are standard across any sport anywhere. And so Goalline provides a lot of those as standard items. So you don't have to go create your own thing. You don't have to create your own web page listing all of the venues that are available in your area, because Goalline provides you with a pre-configured venue listing that would provide the list of all of the names of the venues that you have in the system, along with whatever address information is available for them. If there's any additional description information, you can even drill down and see that in here as well. So just by adding the venues that you need for scheduling anyway, you're going to find that you have a nice, easy way to just post that list to your menu. Whether you place it here or under the About Us page is going to be up to you, but I am going to give you some hints and recommendations about that as we go along here. So your gold and silver layout options are going to provide you with that top level first row and second row of your menu. So I'm going to hop in to the back end and take a look in the website section of our master menu. We'll take a look at standard menu settings. So your standard menu settings are going to be found in the website settings option. This is also where you're going to find site configuration, and we're going to play around in there a little bit as well. So your standard menu settings is going to list all of the standard items that are available to you based on what's enabled for your organization. If you don't use registration at all, then you won't see the registration options showing up in here. If you only have leagues and don't have rep teams, you wouldn't see the teams option in here, for example. So there's some things that can be turned on and off. If you're not using our advanced official system, you wouldn't see the officials login and so on. So with each of these standard items, you get to choose whether or not you would like to place it in your top menu first row or second row. And you can also choose not to display it in the menu at all. Like with our web pages, and we're going to look at web pages in a little more depth here shortly. When something is not displayed in the menu, that does not mean that it's not available for people to navigate to the page that exists for this item. It just means that it's not in the menu for folks to navigate to. So when things are not displayed in the menu, they do still have an active URL. So folks may still be able to access those pages. The other option that we have here is to place below another page. So this is where I always recommend that one of the first things you do is to create a web page that's called About Us or About whatever your organization's acronym is. So About Us is kind of a great landing page. It's a very common web page that you're going to find on a lot of different websites. And when you configure that, you can, have it be a landing page that talks about your organization's mission and values, your location, your purpose, whatever else that you want to share with the public. And then when you create the page, if you place that in the top menu first row, it then allows you to go ahead and select that. Instead of putting this item in my top menu first row, I'm going to place it underneath the web page that's called About. So when I move to the public side, I can see I have About, and then News Archives is listed here. I also see that Board of Directors is listed here. This is also a standard item that's been placed below the About Us page. So when I hop back over here, we can see executive is listed under the About Us page, but it didn't say executive on the public side. So another fun thing we can do with this tool is you can rename and provide a new title for items that are the standard items, but maybe just don't have the name you want. For example, Board of Directors is another word that a lot of folks will use for their executive. If I come over here, I can click this edit title option, and this is where I can put in the title that I want to see on my website. It doesn't change what the item is, it just changes the label that's used publicly. So when I go over here, I see Board of Directors, and it's going to show that executive listing using the standard tool to create your executives. So you can change your titles and save those titles so that you can have whatever it is that you use as terminology showing there. Another great example of times when people will use the edit title option is for things like divisions, leagues, and standings and teams. These words may want to be different on your site. When we say divisions, we're talking about those different menu groupings that are available here. I'll just scroll up and show you here. So we have one division grouping is going to be competitive, one is house. And so each one has some leagues within. So when I use divisions, it's using the competitive label and the house label, and then the flyout is going to give me the league options within. If divisions isn't a word that my organization wants to see, maybe this should say leagues, maybe it should say age groups, maybe it should say categories, classifications, whatever it is that makes sense to your organization, you can update the label that's used for the standard item as it's placed in the menu. It just makes sure that the terminology that's used on your website matches what your membership is used to seeing, while keeping it nice and simple and allowing you to use our standard tools and just simply rename them for the purpose of the menu. When you go to save your standard menu items, so I'll just click to save here. It's going to provide me. Oh, the other thing I should mention is I have too many items. So I've got too many items in my page, and some of them violate some of the rules here. So let me just go back here, and some of us at Goalline are able to override those, but then regular users certainly can't. So there are limits to how many items can be placed in your menus. And that limit is typically 7 for the top and 9 for the bottom on a gold site, and 9 in both on a silver site. We also recommend that you don't use menu labels that are more than 20 characters long, because you want your menu to be easy to read and spaced out nicely. You don't want it to be cramped and have items really close together and have it hard for folks to determine when one stops and the other one begins. So keep in mind that there are limitations there on what can be placed in each number of your rows. So when we look at this, I might want to make some adjustments here. My master schedule is one that I often recommend is not really placed directly in the menu. Most of the time when folks are looking for a schedule, they're looking for their team or their league schedule. The master schedule is an accumulation of all of your schedules. So let me see here. So if I click on schedule, our master schedule allows me to see everything that's going on across all the leagues, all the teams, all the association-wide events, everything that's going on. It's not the way that I would want to drill down on my schedule if I'm a player and I just want to see my team schedule. The way that I'm going to want to do that is I'm going to want to find my team, and then from my team menu, see my schedule. this is where I would get to that option where I want to subscribe to it on my Google Calendar and so on. So the way that people are going to navigate and find schedules isn't really going to be using the master schedule, but it is a really helpful tool to have available. So let's tuck it under About Us so that it's not placed directly in my menu. We've already got leagues out of the menu. Another one that I always like to point out is that your menu items for standings and for divisions often display the same content. The difference being that standings doesn't provide the follow through on the league navigation that you might be looking for. And I'm going to show you that a little bit slower on the public side just so that you can understand how what I mean by that. So when we look at our divisions are going to be showing up here as are all of the divisions that are available. And when I land on one, it's going to show me the standings page. So as I navigate, and there's different ways for me to have navigated. So I've already navigated to U18 boys standings, and then I can navigate again to U18 boys standings using exactly the same tool. But so we kind of have duplication in the menu. This item doesn't need to be here because this item takes me to exactly the same places and provides me with the same options. It just navigates a little bit differently. When it comes to using the gold level layout, the division item, when I select a division, this one's multi-sport, not so much age group. So if I select hockey, I'm then going to see all of the hockey divisions that are available. And when I click on one, it's going to land where I told it I want it to land. In this case is going to be standings. Let me click on my women's league here. That's got some content on it. There we go. So my women's league here, we can see I'm landing on the standings, and here are the league menu options. When I use just the standings tool, it doesn't do that in quite the same way. So the divisions and the standings options are a little bit different. And I generally recommend on our demo sites, we usually will have both, but mostly just to tell you why you shouldn't have both on your site. So I would want to remove the standings item from the menu here. And I want to remove that just because I'm already showing divisions, and I've configured my division landing page to be the standings that I want it to show anyway. So you generally wouldn't have leagues, standings, and divisions all at the same time, or teams and divisions at the same time if all you have are rep teams or travel teams on your site. Another one is registration forms and things. You may not want to place registration forms in your menu directly. It's going to really depend a lot on how you want things to navigate. So registration forms will show each form, and in a gold layout, it's going to show each form as its own button. Whereas on the silver layout, we do get a drop down. So when we look at registration, I can see that my registration forms are showing here. On a gold level site, if we have registration, it shows the registration form itself in the menu directly. It's not a drop down where I can select from. I'm going to click directly on the one that I want to register for. So as I go back over here, we'll put our registration forms in the second row of our menu instead of in the top row. Another reason that I like to do that is because the menu behavior in your second row is a little different than in your first row. As I scroll here, I can hover over, and there's all kinds of drop-down menus here. And we'll see that on our gold level sites as well. There's drop-downs available where we have subpages or the divisions or standings that just happen to have a naturally built subpage. So as we go through here, I don't want all of my menu items to be taken up with registration forms or things that just aren't necessary at the moment. So now if we go to save, I probably won't have a menu error because I moved the registration form option. So I've saved that change, and let's go ahead and refresh here so we can see that change has happened automatically. So my registration forms on silver sites do still show like this, but now that item is in my second row. So my menu up here just got quite a bit smaller and a little bit more direct, because if I want to look for specific teams, I come here. If I want to look at different divisions, I go here. If I want to look at the different sport groupings, this is also using this is a web page that was created here. So different sports were created as web pages. So we can see that these changes happen automatically right away, real time, as soon as you've saved. Now that I have saved this and I've configured a little bit of how I want my menu, I can order them from left to right in my top menu or second row. So when I click here to order things, I can move things around just by moving them up or moving them down. And this is going to order everything from left to right. And then I can confirm that order and it's going to change that order. So now sponsorship is going to be next to About Us instead of being on the other side of the sport drop down. So lots of things that you can do to configure your menu. Um, let's see here. So yeah, the limitations on the characters and the items is something that you want to keep in mind, both for the fact that Goalline is of course going to limit the numbers of items and characters, but also just for simplicity of navigation. Having a really full menu can sometimes be a little overwhelming, and when you think that your audience is mainly looking at it on a mobile device, it might be easiest to have a nice simplified menu and really take advantage of the ability to build sub pages and things for people to find the information that they're looking for in a way that's kind of logical, a good order there. So now I can go back into standard menu settings, or I can go and look at my web pages. The reason I can look at my web pages, actually, let me just click back here. When I did click to order, this is not just showing my standard items. It's showing the web pages as well. So that about item, this is a web page that was created. It's not a standard item, but it's in the menu. So when I go to order my menu from left to right, it includes all of the relevant items that happen to be in that menu. So you're not just having web pages stuck to the left or the right. So you can order everything specifically, as specifically as you'd like. So now I'm going to take a look at creating a web page, because creating a web page is something that even if the only one you do is to create that About Us page, it's definitely recommended to do so. So you can click Create Web Page or Manage Web Pages to edit an existing web page. So if we go to create one, I can call it whatever I want. So it does need a title. So let's say I'm going to call this Mission because there's already one called About Us. So when I create my web page, I need to give it a title before I can save it. I can't save it if it doesn't have a title. I can skip the content part if I want to, and I'll explain why. Because the content, this is what's actually going to show up on the page. So you might want to really fill this out. Your mission statement as an organization, the values that you have, and so on. You can do all kinds of things on this page. And then you can place it with the placement options here. The default option, it's going to want to place it in top menu first row. But when I open this, you can see I've got a lot of choices for where I want this to go. So the first choice is top menu first row. Then it gives me the option to select any of the web pages that are already in my top menu first row, such as about or sponsorship, sport, and so on. Then I can also make it a subpage on silver layouts. I can make this a subpage of one of these as well. So it can be a subpage to a subpage and have that third flyout existing there. The other option is to place it directly in your top menu second row. When you place it in your top menu second row, it displays as its own item. The other option is not displayed on menu. And just like the standard items, a web page that's not displayed on the menu is available for folks to access if they have the URL or if there's a link to it from somewhere else. A great example of where you may have links to it from somewhere else is you may have folks navigating to it using your image upload with text options. So maybe you have a big registration event opening up and you have a picture on here that tells people, click for info on registration, and they click it and they land on the web page that you just created that has all of that registration information in it. So lots of different use cases there for not placing it directly in your menu. Of course, you can do both, place it in the menu and use it as part of your image upload with text links. And then once the URL exists, it can be used from anywhere that you can create a link. The reason that I mentioned that you don't necessarily even need content in here is because the other option with creating a web page is that this may be a redirect. So if you want a button in your menu that takes you to a specific URL, regardless of what that URL is, you can do that by creating the web page with the title that you want the button to say, and then the URL where you want that link to go. So when folks click on it, they're going to be sent to this URL, not landing on the content page. When you are linking to a redirect, if it's not within your Goalline site, I recommend using the new tab or window option here so that they're still on your Goalline site, and then the other web page is going to open in a new tab for them. That way they're just not having to click back on their browser and navigate back to where they were when they clicked that link in the first place. The other option you have is to password protect your web pages. This should be available to everyone. This is not a paid feature within Goalline. You should be able to set a password for your web pages. If you don't see the option to create a password on a web page, you can contact our support team and we can very, very quickly turn that feature on for you. So like I said, it should be available now. So password protecting a web page makes it so that the URL can be accessed by anyone, but the content will not display unless the viewer puts in what the password is. So if it's blank, there's no password, but if there is a password, it needs to be put in exactly, and it's going to be case sensitive. A great example for what people often use for password protected pages is meeting minutes. Things like meeting minutes from annual general meetings or executive or board meetings. You may want to have this web page exist and easy to find on your web page, and then have, date of meeting, and then a link to, maybe you'd spell it better than I did. So I have a link to the minutes document. And you can link to files by just selecting here. I want to highlight this and I want to create a link to it. And I want that link to be, instead of a URL, I want it to be a file. And then, of course, the file has to be there, but I would select a file, and now it's going to be a link to a file. But only folks who can access the page through having the password would be able to actually get to that page to click on that link. So password protected web pages are available. A page being password protected doesn't change where or how it can be placed or used in your menu. It just simply makes it so that you have to enter the password in order to view the content of that page. So that's creating web pages and the placement option that you have available here. If you use the redirect option, I don't think you should put any content in here because that might cause some confusion with the browser and may cause a security pop-up for certain users, especially folks who are on your site at work or something through a work IP address. So no content in here if you are linking it to a redirect web page. If you're not linking it to a redirect web page, then of course you do want content here. Otherwise, people see a whole lot of nothing when they click on your web page. So that is creating your web page, that as soon as you create that, as soon as it's available in that top menu first row, it's now available for you to start using to place standard items underneath. So if I come over to my other example here, I've got About Us, I've got the venue listing, the email sign up option, the news items, the executive listing, all under here, because they're all things I want people to find, but I don't want them taking up valuable real estate in my menu. I want that to be for how people are going to find their team, find their division, maybe find the registration forms, the referee login, and whatnot. So lots of different ways for you to configure that menu. So we looked at standard menu settings, and then we just looked at creating web pages. I'm going to go back out to the website option over here. Actually, I lied. I'm going to go to the website option over here. On your gold level site, which is the one that's this. This is a gold level site. I can configure the things that I want to show up as modules on the right-hand side here. And I can also configure what goes into my callout boxes. So I'm going to hop into our website site configuration option to do that. Site configuration for gold and silver gives you lots of different options for a few different things throughout the site. If you're using registration, if you're using the referee system, you're going to find that there's some additional options here and there that you see that maybe others don't see that aren't using some of those features. But if I want that next team practice or team games or upcoming practices and upcoming games to show in my sidebar on the right hand side, I come through here and I say yes. If I don't want that to be the case, I can just simply say no. So maybe I want it to show up on the teams, but I don't want it to show up on the main menu. So I can say no to just the generic upcoming games and practices, but yes to the show next team games and team practices. This would mean that when I go to a team menu, it will show those modules in the right sidebar. But when I'm on the main menu or the home page of the site, it's not going to show that to me. Lots of other options in here, but I want to drill down on a few that are particularly important for today's webinar, and that is the callout box options. So your callout boxes are going to be your left, center, and your right callout, and you can choose what you want to place in them. So the type of the callout is how it's going to behave. Here we've got the selection of image upload with text, but we can see that there's other options. So it could be the next event or a listing of upcoming events, recently scored games, upcoming practices, a specific news article, up to 3 featured articles, so articles 1, 2, and 3. When you create your news article, you tell it, is this featured? And if it is it featured 1, featured 2, featured 3? And that will tell the system whether it should go here. Then we have tonight's games, which should show any games that are happening that evening. RSS and News Feed is one that we're using down here. So the RSS and News Feed option, you can create your own or select your own title for that. So a lot of times people will use more news, but live updates is another good one. And then the feed address. So this feed address comes from wherever it is the information is pulling from. Goalline sites do have an RSS feed, so your news articles that you create are part of an RSS feed that could be displayed somewhere else if you have another website that you want to show your Goalline news articles on. This is pulling from an existing Goalline site. So when we see the live updates here, these are news articles that are pulling in from the news articles posted on this website. When I click on one, it automatically opens in a new tab because we know that it's coming from another website, and it lands me on the news article that I clicked on when I clicked there to view that. So that is one of the options here is RSS feed. And then we've got our featured article here as well. The other one, as I mentioned, is the image upload with text. This one is probably one of the most popular to use because it's really flexible. On gold sites, you'll select your file, and then you'll select what it links to. And this is going to link to one of your either standard items, and it will show you here these are standard items, or to one of your own existing web pages. So when you have a website or a web page that you want this to link to, you select it from there, and then you can include teaser text. You don't need to include this teaser text. This is essentially the title that's provided. I have referee login as the teaser text here, but if I didn't, it would just be a whistle. And I like to mention that you don't need this text because a lot of organizations have some really creative folks who make a lot of great graphics. If your graphic is enough that I don't need an extra title, then you don't have to put anything there. Register now with a big old button and the image itself tells you what it is. You don't necessarily need that teaser text or that title option to be placed in there. So that's just one to keep in mind with image upload and with text. So mine has referee login here because it's just a whistle. If I had the words log in here, then maybe I wouldn't use this label to be placed here. So that is why we would want to create web pages and how we manage these callout boxes. The next thing that we'll take a quick look at, sorry, I just heard a question pop through. Going very fast. I apologize for that. I do tend to get a little speedy with my conversation. So this webinar is being recorded, and as soon as it's over, you should get an email from the same place that you got an email when you registered. That's going to provide you a link to the recording of this webinar, so you can watch it back whenever. We also, almost every single one of our webinars that we've put on in the last year and a half is also available to see on our Goalline YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, we do have a channel that has all of the. Oh, I'm not logged into it right now, so I'll just tell you. So we do have a Goalline YouTube channel. This webinar should be there tomorrow morning for sure, so you can go ahead and watch it on YouTube. But yes, all of our webinars that we put on are automatically recorded, so that you can always watch them back. But I will definitely try to pace myself here as I go through. I apologize. I do talk pretty fast sometimes. All right. So the other things that I wanted to point out in site configuration, I'm going to hop over back to Trevor's here just because there's some other options that we'll see here as well. With your teams and leagues, you're going to have, if you have both, then you might need a setting for both of these. But in general, most organizations are going to have a bunch of leagues or a bunch of rep teams, and you can determine what those landing pages are. So as I was clicking around on the public sites there, our leagues were landing on standings and our teams were landing on schedules. But you have choices there. You have choices with how that lands. So I'm going to scroll down and get to our front page display options. So the number of news articles, this 5 is usually a good choice, but this could be up to 10. You have other options here for how email addresses that are publicly displayed are image or clickable. Clickable is generally the one that people don't like because it could generate some spam. Image prevents a lot of spam because you can't click on it. You can to copy it, you have to actually type it out. Showing your news slider, this really needs to be set to yes either way. On a silver site, you don't necessarily have to. If you chose not to, you would not see the news articles scrolling through here. So folks wouldn't know maybe that there's new content for them to check out. Teams or leagues under the division menu, there is always going to be a default here. So when we were talking about placing that division standard item in your menu, if you are a club or an association and you have all rep teams, this is going to say default, and it's going to default to showing your teams. If you're a tournament or a league, this is going to say default, and it's going to default to your leagues. But you can choose to make a change there. And I always recommend that you select the dominant of your organization. If you are predominantly a travel association, so you have mostly rep teams, but you run a handful of house leagues, you would want your teams to be the main item and your house leagues are going to be the secondary. The other way around might be true if you manage leagues but you just happen to have one select team that plays in a neighboring league. Then you would want leagues to be the default, and then your team would be placed in the menu separately. You also, for organizations that only have one team, you're able to actually place a team menu in your menu directly as that second menu row. This is really helpful for organizations that do just have that one team that you want to showcase and that you don't want people to have to even navigate to at all. If you just want them to be able to see the team pages and the menu items. So I'm just going to click over to one of my divisions here and kind of drill down. So when we see the items here, if I drill, let's go to, where's Thunder? Let's look at Thunder. So if I look at Thunder, we've got all of these items here. This is my team menu. So you could have an option where that team menu, instead of using the second menu row here for other items, this could just be your team menu directly on the homepage. And that makes it easier for folks to find what they're looking for. But it is only really something that you should do if you are a single team organization. A lot of club teams that are part of a network in Goalline where your club really only runs one team and you play in another Goalline league, this is an awesome way to go ahead and display those items without having to actually configure them and place those individual items in your menu. So if you do select a team menu, you select the team that it should be the menu for. Again, I recommend this when it's only one team, so you shouldn't be choosing between multiple teams. The other items that we see in here is how we determine that landing page for your leagues and for your teams. For leagues, we have options in here that it can be the standings, news, or schedule. For teams, it can be news or schedule. The reason it cannot be standings for teams is because teams themselves do not have standings. Teams might be part of someone's standings, but teams don't have standings. So you can choose this through here. I generally don't recommend using the news items for either of these. And that's only because, in general, news is going to be something that your organization is going to create at the master menu level and not as much in the league and team menus. So when you select news to be the league or team landing page, it is league or team specific news. So oftentimes it ends up landing on a page that says there's nothing to see here. So when you know that you're not going to be using the league or team news article portion, you may find it beneficial to just go ahead and say, let's go and land on standings, because from standings, I can get to everything else. Let's land on team schedule, because from schedule, I can get to everything else. Your team schedules can also be chosen to be in a list view or a calendar view. The calendar view is often what's preferred for team schedules. League schedules can only be shown in a list view, and that's mainly because of the amount of content. Leagues often have many things happening on the same days, in which case the calendar view is just not an optimal view. If you're using tryouts, this is also where you can say what that tryout order is. But this is a really important section to come into. Typically, when you use site configuration, you use it once as you're getting set up, and you don't tend to need to come back in and make a lot of changes in here. Most of the things that happen in site configuration, they're kind of overall settings that kind of impact your general site. But then the day-to-day stuff is going to be by creating news articles, creating web pages, creating schedules, and so on. And that's what's going to actually keep the content fresh and exciting on your site. So you configure the menu order, you configure how people will navigate, you configure some of that general content that you want people to have. And then from there, you create schedules, you score games, people start navigating through and viewing their stats and so on. For the silver layout, the launch homepage customization tool is going to be found here in site configuration. This is where you determine some of those flexible options that I mentioned regarding how your modules might behave. So when we look here, we've got all kinds of options here on how you want to configure things. So your main image, you can go ahead and make that taller so that you can fit 2 ads on it instead of just one, or you can keep it short. You can also make it darker or as uploaded. So darker just provides a little bit more of that shadow, which allows the news articles and ads that may be placed here to really pop up against that background image. We can also come down here and you can enable or disable your scrolling game center. If it turns green, that means you can edit it, and then I can go ahead and say that I just don't want to display it and it won't be enabled anymore. When we come down to the next section here, we can see that 2, 3, or 4 options. So 2 callout boxes or 3 callout boxes or 4 callout boxes. So you can change those around and make that whatever you want. Then as you scroll down here, we see our four rows. That's where we can change it to either 4 rows or a 2x4 grid. When you use a 2x4 grid, it just changes the size of the modules, and it might change some of the way the content displays depending on what content you've thrown in. This having 4x8 is fantastic if you have a lot of content to display. Some organizations might say, well, I don't really have a lot of content. But then when you think about some of the items that you can choose, you might have more than you think. So I'm going to scroll down through some of the options here for what you can place in these modules. And they're grouped into generally your communication and then your scheduling and stats options. So with communication, I can place news articles and I can drag and drop them and place them wherever it is that I want them to show up. This one's already, those are already displayed in my thing. So it's going to try to keep displaying them in order. But I can also do events. If I want the next event that we have going on to be placed in my menu or in my module, I can do that. If there's nothing to display, then there's nothing to display. If I choose upcoming events as a longer item, it's going to be down here. So upcoming events would show me multiple upcoming events, not just the next event. But then there's other options here, again, similar to the callout box options that we had with gold. You can do the image upload with text, RSS feeds. This is where your Twitter and Facebook feeds can go, and YouTube videos can be placed directly into these modules as well. For scheduling, you've got recent scores, upcoming games, upcoming practices, and events. And then following through from scheduling is going to be the statistics. And the statistics options are going to be different depending on what sport or sports you have on your site. We're using a multi-sport demo site, which means we've got a lot of different sports and stats that can come through here. But as you can see, again, I can drag and drop for whatever division. So I want my Halifax girls goals against average leader to be placed here. So it's going to automatically calculate who's leading in this stat based on reporting games for that division. So as you think about the kinds of, if you've got 3 or 4 different divisions, you could fill 4 modules with just your goals leader or your goalie save percentage and that type of thing. So there's lots of content that you might have that you don't even realize that you might want to display. These obviously are going to depend on the fact that we expect that you're reporting full statistics. Goalline does provide options to say, I just want to report the score versus I want to report full individual player statistics. So you've got those options. If you're using full individual statistics, think about the breadth of stats that you have available to drag and drop into the modules that are listed here or that are available here. If you find you really just don't have that much content, then go back to the 4 rows and you can configure that to be with news articles, or again, image upload with text works well here. And then just create news articles on a regular basis so that you've got new content pushing through. When you do place multiple news articles in your modules, they'll start by trying to show the most current ones. So we've got article 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I went and created another news article right now that's more current, it's going to place itself here, and then it's going to bump everything else down. So our last one here, article 4, drops off. It's still part of our news archive or our recent headlines listing, but it's not going to be shown here on that homepage anymore because there's going to be another article that kind of bumped it out of its place. So site configuration on silver layouts is where you go to configure the general shape of the way you want to use the template. Again, often it's one and done, like you don't do this and change things in here very frequently. And ideally, you're selecting options like goals leaders, goals against average, save percentage, things like that will automatically keep updating themselves. Every time you report a game, the system will automatically calculate who is the league leader now. So you don't have to go and do the math yourself. You don't have to accumulate statistics or go out of your way to show who's leading in goals right now for that division. The system's going to automatically showcase it. When you are using modules like that, it will also show, I don't have it configured in here, but it will also show their photo. If you collect player photos, it will even put their photo next to it if you choose to display that as part of your player information displayed. So lots of really cool options with how you can get content to show up in your modules on your Silver website. So we looked already, and I'm just going to go back over to the website portion here. So we looked at creating a web page, and we took a brief look here at the options for how you edit your web page. And so these are pretty familiar from word processing. They are a little bit simplified, and that is on purpose. So I do get that question quite a bit: is how come I can't change the the color of the text or change to various fonts and things like that? And it's really for consistency and for optimal viewing on multiple browsers and multiple types of devices. So the Goalline options are going to be fairly simplified so that when people view content, it's all going to be configured very, very consistently. You do have options to change styles, so you can use different headings, underline, strike through, superscript, large. You can change the sizing a little bit as well to all kinds of different levels. You can add lots of other formatting things in here. So, content that you want to break up into sections, put a nice little horizontal line in there, and now it's it's going to look nice and broken up in there. When you do have things like that, you can even link to anchor text down below. I can create an anchor down here and have, on the top, I can put cool content and have it linked down to somewhere lower down on the page. So you've got lots of really great options that you can use to configure the description area. In this case, we're looking at web page, but there's a reason why I'm saying the description area in general, because we see this same editor options in various places throughout the site. So as I go back out to website, we'll look at news articles. So when it comes to creating a news article, of course, we need a title just like anything else. And you need to include a published date and time. That could be just today. And then the published time should be kind of 12 a.m. So you're first thing in the morning. Your time zone is going to be based on where you're located. So mine is in the Atlantic time zone because I'm here in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. You can include an expiry date to articles, but this isn't required either. So using a published date and an expiry date just makes it unavailable until it's published or unavailable after it's expired. When you go to publish your article, you can include a photo. This would be used as that main photo for the news article. You can include a caption and a summary, and then again, the content. So the description area of the article. Your main photo is the one that's going to be used on the homepage, but the article content can have additional photos throughout using all those same, we call them the WYSIWYG editor options. So what you see is what you get. When you configure it using these options, it looks the same here as it will on the public side of the site. When you go to publish your news article, you go down and create the article. I'm going to come back to the fact that we have an email announcement form there in just one moment, and we're super close to being done here. So when I go back to the website option over here, this is also where I would go to create events that I want to be listed in my event listing, which again is a standard item. So we've got one listed over here. An event needs a title and a date, and it's ideal to include a start time if there is one. Otherwise, it's considered an all-day event. And then the description, again, can be configured here using all kinds of these great options. So you can really make it look like a web page, essentially. So your event listing, your event web pages should be, think of them as web pages. When people click on it, all the details they need to know should be here. But you can easily just link out and say, click here for more information and send people to a separate web page. Options available there. Now I'm going to show you more about the email announcement, because I'm going to scroll down here and we're going to see that we've got an email form listed here. And we just saw this also when we were looking at creating news articles. So when we create an email, you have an email announcement form. So I can create a news article and email it as I send it. I can also create an event and email it as I send it. We're going to see that email announcement form on game and practice forms as well. But the email announcement form is going to be found here in this send email or text announcement. This is where you go to send just a general email. So I'm going to put in the title, which is my subject line, and my email announcement body. Again, we see the same editor options. So you're able to configure your email to look really nice and fancy and have all the kind of content and links on it that you may want. Then you decide on your recipients. So when you're communicating through Goalline, your recipients are categorized already into their logical groupings of athletes or players, in most cases, players, parents, coaches, email subscription lists, website administrators, and officials, as well as your executive listing, which is generally down at the bottom as well. We've grouped this way so that when you're sending a general announcement that you want to send to all your players and all your parents and their coaches, you just check those boxes. When there's specific titles of coaches that you want, like maybe I only want to send this to the coaches that have the title manager, I can do that here. And then I send to which leagues and which teams. If I want everyone to get it, I'm going to say all, assigned and unassigned. I'm using the control key to select more than one. Anytime we have a selector box, you can always use the control key to select more than one. But I can also just select a couple of specific divisions. Maybe this email announcement is only relevant to players and parents and managers who play in these two divisions. So I can do it that way, or I can just catch everyone by saying all and all. This site has leagues and association teams. If you only have one or the other, you don't see both of these boxes. So when you go to send your email announcement, this one is going to go to athletes and parents. I'm just going to throw in some content here. so that it will think that there's a message. So I select my players, parents, coaching staff who are managers of all of the leagues, all of the teams, and I'm going to go ahead and save and send that email announcement. So when I send it, it's going to show me who it's sent to. I selected as many as 337 recipients. 6 of them received it. As we can see, there's a good reason why these guys didn't get it. They just don't have an email address. So this is my summary information. So they don't have an email address. And then we can see here, test player 1 has it here. They're using the same email address. That's interesting. And then as I scroll down, we might see some additional reasons people didn't receive the email. Trevor is unsubscribed. He's not going to receive the email because he's unsubscribed. And as you may or may not know, the Goalline platform is fully CASL compliant, and we have tools that allow you to maintain your CASL compliance as well for the Canadian anti-spam legislation. So we scroll down here and we can see that there's really only a handful of unique email addresses that were used here in at all. And they all tend to be, they're just the same ones over and over again. So that is why we're seeing it didn't send to most of my recipients because they just don't have an email. It didn't send to a large chunk because they were unsubscribed. And then it sent to less because of the 10 or so recipients that all use the same email address. We only send the email once. We don't want to spam the same email address 6 times because they happen to have 6 instances of their email. What happens if a person unsubscribes? That's a great question. So every email they receive is going to have a link at the bottom for them to select to unsubscribe. It also will, it will show them if they've already unsubscribed, they can go to an earlier email, click that same link, and they can opt back in to receiving all or some of your messages. The other option that you have when it comes to unsubscribed email addresses is to send them a resubscribe request. So from your people section, I'm just gonna, I have to find where it is. I'm gonna find subscription, unsubscribed email address. Oh, it's in the email section. That makes a lot of sense. Sorry, it used to be in the people section until we did our menu redesign here. So if I click on unsubscribed email addresses, this is going to list all of the email addresses that have unsubscribed from my emails. And if I want him to resubscribe, I can check his name here, and then there's a default block of text, but you can update that to whatever you want. So I can type in, you know, please resubscribe because we send email all the time and it's really important that you get our email, and yeah, just do it. So then they'll receive that because you are allowed to send this resubscribe email to someone who has unsubscribed. You're not able to send other email announcements to them in any other way. It's also important to note that when someone is unsubscribed from email lists, even all of the email lists, they will still receive registration confirmation emails, but they may not receive anything else, including things like team attendance emails. And those are, of course, pretty important for them to receive. So the first thing I would say is tell them to resubscribe just by clicking the link in one of their previously received emails. Otherwise, if they can't find one or whatever and you're speaking to them, go to the unsubscribed email addresses and send them a specific resubscribe request. You're also able to select multiple recipients here. This one just happens to only have one unsubscribed, but you can select as many as you need to here, and it will show when the last update was. So if you sent a resubscribe request today, the last update is going to be today, and if they still haven't resubscribed, then they're still going to be listed here on this page. So that's a really popular reason for folks to not receive your emails. The last thing I'm going to show is how you send an email, how you're going to send an email in a slightly different way. So the email announcement is kind of your general. It's your generic announcements. You're not selecting specific recipients or based on anything other than their team assignment or the fact that they're part of a certain league. You may want to email people because they registered for a certain program or fit a certain demographic of criteria. So with all our different person types, you're going to find there's a different search tool. Apologies again, I am going to go just maybe 2 minutes and then we'll be all done. So find players here or find athletes, your find coaches or find officials. The search results you get from any of your person searches will allow you to send an email. So if I scroll scroll down and I do some registration reporting, and I want to find everyone who registered against my March break camp form, for example, I can search for all of those participants and I can send them an email if I want to from the search results. So I'm just going to perform a quick little search here for this specific registration. And this is really popular because using the March break example, I may want to send all these people information about, the camps next week. Make sure you bring all of these items every day, or, sunscreen is not provided, whatever it is that you need to say. So I can email the players, I can email the parents or guardians, or I can email all. Youth organizations, I'm going to go ahead and say email all is generally the best option. The reason for that is it captures parents and players, and youth organizations typically will place their parent email in place of the player's email. So it's always a good idea to say email all, just because that's going to catch as many email addresses for your players and parents as possible. When I click this button, it pops up to show me the players that are part of my search results. So I had 5 players in my search results. They're all checked here. If Ava is my daughter, I don't need to send her this email because I'm just going to tell her the information. So I can deselect somebody from this list if I want to. When I click to email the chosen recipients, it's going to take me to the email announcement body, very, very similar to what we were just looking at. So I still create the email. And this is where I might say, make sure you bring these items next week. Or maybe I did a search on people who still owe their fees. Maybe this is a please pay your fee email, but it's targeted to only the recipients who were selected to receive that announcement. So when I send it, it's only going to send it to those specific recipients. So that's just another way for you to target your email communications. So email can either be a general email announcement based on league or team, or a targeted email announcement based on search results from your individual person searches. And those include your players, coaches, registrants, volunteers, or officials and umpires and referees. So that is our communication options from search results. You're going to see the communication email announcement form in lots of different places in the site. And the last thing I'll say about that is everything we've just done, as we drill down into league menus, we can do exactly the same things, but we can only do it for our league or team menu that we've drilled down into. So someone who manages girls volleyball can log into girls volleyball and send a general announcement to everyone, but everyone is only going to be people who are part of girls volleyball. So that covers today's webinar. So we took a look at our website layout options, how you manage your menu, how to create content for the site, and how to use those communication tools to send important emails out to your memberships. Some great questions there. Yes, it's recorded, and I hope you found it useful. You'll find that there's lots of different ways to get in touch with our support team and access help information, including just from your menu here. So you can access the support portal or the FAQ. Our webinar listing is going to be updated shortly to land you on our Goalline YouTube channel, but lots of ways to get in touch with support and get individual help information. So reach out to us if you have any further questions after today's webinar. And thanks so much for joining.